Let's talk modern day stereotypes. Hello everyone, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the star of your own life. I want to make this video to talk a little bit about like modern day stereotypes versus masculine and feminine energies. I kind of want to make this video for some of the newer people to my content. I feel like some of you that have been following my content, some of this might be a repetitive thing, but you'll probably get some information from this as well. But I've actually had a lot of new people come to my account. I had a few YouTube shorts that kind of went viral, and it seemed like a lot of people were kind of jumping to some conclusions and making some assumptions about what I was talking about with masculine and feminine energies that I can't really sum up in just like a YouTube short. So I wanted to make this video to kind of clear up a few misconceptions about masculine and feminine energy and some of the things that we see in everyday life, just to clarify some things. So a big thing that I see a lot is I think a lot of people mistake masculine and feminine energies for gender. Now, most men are masculine at their core and most women are feminine at their core, but we all contain both energies. So we all have access to masculine energy and to feminine energy. We can also all be in wounded versions of our masculine energy or healed versions of our masculine energy. And we all have the capacity to be in wounded versions of our feminine energy or healed versions of our feminine energy. There are exceptions, and there are women who are masculine at their core and there are men who are feminine at their core. It's not super common, but it does happen. So I tend to speak about masculine men and feminine women because those are the most common. However, if somebody doesn't fit into that category where somebody is a masculine woman, truly masculine at their core, or a man is truly feminine at his core, you can make my content work for you in whatever way you really feel like resonates. Now, ideally, if they say a man is a masculine core being, he would be primarily in his healthy masculine energy, but he would have access to a healthy version of his feminine energy. And a feminine woman who's feminine at her core would ideally be in a healthy version of her feminine energy most of the time, but have access to a healthy version of her masculine energy. Ideal circumstances. We all have wounding. We all have traumas. We all have stuff we've been through in our life. So wounded masculine, wounded feminine can creep into most of our lives at some point in time. This isn't about judging or shaming anybody. It's just if you find yourself as a man or a woman and you're really being overpowered by your wounded masculine energy, or as a man or woman you're being overpowered by your wounded feminine energy, gonna have a lot of problems in your life, not just in your romantic relationships, but you're gonna have them in your overall life in general. Now, a healthy masculine energy is going to be about protecting and providing. It's a giving energy. It's about passion and purpose and putting a passion and purpose above everything. A healthy feminine energy is going to be about love and connection. It's going to be about emotions. It's going to be about feeling. If you think about it, like the masculine is the mind, the feminine is the body. The masculine is really the thinking, the doing, the direction. The feminine is really the feeling, the intuition, the flow of life, right? Neither of those things are right or wrong or good or bad. It's just whichever one is really the best for you. And usually most people are going to feel much more comfortable and like more like themselves in one of those two energies. When you get into an unhealthy, or I call it wounded masculine, some people call it toxic masculine, you get into the unhealthy version of masculine energy that's in men or women, it becomes abusive. It becomes destructive. It's not about fighting to protect, it's about fighting to hurt, to harm, fighting for your own ego needs as opposed to fighting for something greater than yourself. It can look very, I would say, like grandiose narcissist, and in many ways. It's kind of getting like pleasure in hurting people. It's lacking empathy. It's usually about being overly controlling, like an obsessive need to control. It can become obsessed with perfectionism. All of those things are wounded masculine qualities. Wounded feminine qualities in men or women tend to be more self-abusive. They tend to be self-harming, like say through addiction. A wounded feminine will often feel obsessed with feeling full and won't be able to fill themselves, so they tend to fill themselves by overeating, over shopping, filling themselves with drugs, alcohol, promiscuity, anything that's really like self-harm harming can usually be a people pleaser, is very often a victim, very often in victimhood mode, is believing that they are a victim, not being able to set healthy boundaries with people, letting yourself be abused in situations. I'm not trying to victim blame. However, very often when you find somebody who is in wounded feminine energy, who does not know how to stand up for themselves, does not know how to set boundaries with people, is often harming themselves or doesn't believe that they're worthy of not being harmed, they very often pair with people who are in their wounded masculine, who are more abusive. And again, this dynamic, the wounding, can exist in men or women. Like, you can get women who are in their wounded masculine and men who are in their wounded feminine. That's usually what comes together when you get that like nagging, obsessive, controlling wife and the passive, weak husband who's sort of in that like victimhood, you know, like, oh, she just bosses me around all the time, like that kind of thing. That's a wounded masculine woman and a wounded feminine man. It can be in reverse. I mean, you can have a man who's in a wounded masculine and a woman who's in a wounded feminine, and that's very often when you get these like domestic violence situations where the man is, you know, abusing the woman and the woman's trying to escape and doesn't know how to leave, and you're like, well, why doesn't she just leave? And very often she just doesn't feel like she can, because I don't want to victim blame, but very often when women are in those situations it's because they don't feel worthy of getting out of that situation. They don't feel worthy of like not being hurt in a relationship. Those are just a few examples of the wounded behaviors and things like that. I mean, there's so many variations. It can be much more subtle, it can be very dramatic. But I want to give a little overview of the masculine and feminine, because in our current society right now, most women are not operating from their natural feminine energy, and most men are not operating from their natural masculine energy. A lot of reasons for that. We could delve into all kinds of reasons for that. I would say, for one thing, is, and I know I do film breakdowns, but there's a lot of media propaganda. There's a lot of, you know, I would say subliminal messaging, mind manipulation and things like that, that are basically pushing women into their masculine and actually suppressing the masculine in men and making them more feminine. The massive lack of masculine leadership we have in the world, not just in lacking father figures, although that is a big aspect of it, but we don't have a lot, or at least enough for the demand of really strong, healthy masculine leadership. So many men are not actually being taught how to step into the fullness of their masculine. In fact, I've mentioned this in a lot of other videos, but you know, many cultures, most cultures in history believe that men have to be initiated into their masculine energy. They have to be guided, usually by, you know, the masculine elders in a tribe. And when we don't have that, we don't have the initiation processes, we don't have the masculine leadership in our society, you don't guide men into their full masculine leadership. So you get a lot of men who are these perpetual little boys. Like, they grow physically into adult men, but they're basically still acting like little boys. But when you push women into this very masculine mindset, which is the thing that feminism absolutely did, and I know a lot of men are gonna argue that, you know, feminism ruined everything, and I think I have a video about my views on feminism and things like that. I'm not gonna dive into that too much here. I don't think we should really be blaming feminism for everything, because if you're a man, you're gonna come to this video and you're gonna blame feminism for all of your problems. You're in your wounded feminine because you're playing the victim, because you're playing a victim to feminism. Just gonna say it. That said, yes, feminism in general, I would say especially like our modern day feminism, has done a serious number on convincing women that they have to be a way that is very unnatural for the way that most women would naturally be if we were left to evolve naturally on our own. This idea that we're pushing women into competition, perfectionism, needing to be in control, needing to achieve, those kind of things, like, that's not natural for most women at their core. We're programmed into being that way. We have this society for many generations now where we've been really pushing women into their masculine and been really pushing men not to step into their masculine, and in turn kind of weakening them and making them into more, I would say, in a wounded feminine. Most men, if you're masculine at your core, which most men are, if they don't ever learn to step into their healthy masculine, they tend to stay in a feminine energy, and very often if you stay outside of your natural core energy for too long, the energy you're in is going to become wounded. A naturally masculine cored man who doesn't step into his masculinity, if he gets into his feminine energy, he's very often going to be in wounded feminine energy. So we see a lot of men sinking into depression. That's a very common side effect of wounded feminine energy, is depression. Addictions, porn addictions, smoking weed, other substances. sinking into just playing video games constantly all the time. Playing video games, it tends to be a battle. It tends to be a false sense of masculinity. Like you're almost like pretending that you're masculine, but it's not real. Very common pattern in young boys today, and even in grown men, unfortunately. When women are pushed so much into their masculine and are never allowed to connect with their feminine energy, that masculine energy tends to be wounded. So you get a lot of women that, I mean, that mean girls phenomenon of basically, you know, that competition and needing to tear each other down kind of thing. Women being very overly controlling, women being obsessed with perfectionism, women becoming abusive in certain ways. Like all those things are kind of where we've pushed our society. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to speak on this is because I'm noticing a pattern with a lot of people assuming that because they meet a lot of women who are, say, a certain way, or they meet a lot of men who are a certain way, that is naturally how men and women are. And so we get into these sort of modern day stereotypes where I see it a lot, where men will see a woman who's very much in her wounded masculine energy and they'll be like, oh, well, that's feminine, that's what a woman is. And it's like, no, that's not actually what a woman is. Like, women are actually not naturally competitive. Women are actually not naturally controlling. Women are actually not naturally perfectionists. That's been put on us. But I think a lot of men, because they've experienced a lot of women probably from their mothers and stuff, like way back as far as they can remember, because they've experienced a lot of women like that, they assume that that's what feminine energy is. It's not. I think there's a lot of women that see men who are weaker, passive, can't commit, have no direction, and they're like, well, that's how men are. Maybe they've experienced that even as far back as childhood, maybe with a father figure or something. They start to believe that that's what men are like. You see this a lot, and I talk about this a lot too when I talk about like stereotypes in the media. The portrayal of kind of like the dumb dad stereotype, you know, the bumbling buffoon father or something. We see that often enough in the media, we start to assume that that's normal, that that's just normal behavior for a father to have no clue and be, you know, completely a mess, and the mother always having to fix everything. That's not natural behavior for a masculine father figure. It's not natural for the mother to be the one that has to fix everything. That's what our modern society has convinced us that men and women are like. It's not normal for women to be nagging all the time. It's not normal for men to be passive and weak all the time. It's not normal for men to be in their victimhood all the time. It's not normal for women to be constantly tearing each other down. It's common in our society because we've been programmed to be like this. But I find sometimes too when I share clips, this happened a lot when I was sharing clips about Beth Dutton. This is where you get the stereotypes of women in the media. Beth Dutton from Yellowstone, Samantha Jones from Sex and the City, is, you know, men become programmed to thinking that women are naturally like this. They're not. Women are not naturally masculine beings. They're not naturally abusive. They're not naturally trying to tear each other down. That's what we've been programmed to be like. So we have to be really careful with assuming that modern day behavior actually dictates what people are actually truly like at their core and what masculine and feminine energy actually is. We're not seeing a lot of really great representations, especially in the media, especially in you know, Hollywood or in politics or things like that. Like, we rarely get glimpses of people, at least on a grand scale, of people who are naturally in their core energy. We need more examples of really amazing, healthy masculine leadership in men. We need really great examples of very beautiful, feminine, queen-like energy in women. We need more of that in our society. If you do find yourself having these very, I call them limiting beliefs, but you have these beliefs that, you know, all women are abusive and all women are aggressive, or all men are passive, or all men are weak, or something like that. On either end, like you're having these kind of like general stereotypes, I would highly recommend you watch my video about limiting beliefs, because those beliefs are probably not yours. They're beliefs that were given to you. Like, I see men who are like, all women are cheaters. Women are not naturally cheaters. Or the idea of, you know, women being gold diggers or always looking to trade up or something. Most women, if they're connected to their feminine energy, are not just gonna up and leave a relationship. Most women are really devoted and dedicated to relationships. Relationships are their #1 priority. It's not natural for women to be putting their business and their career first. Some women do, and I'm not judging anyone who chooses to do that, but it's not natural at our core. When men are finding women doing that, it doesn't mean that's feminine. That's not feminine at all. That's just common today because our society is structured that way. If women are finding a lot of men are weak and passive, who aren't stable, who don't have direction, who don't know how to lead, doesn't mean that masculine energy doesn't know how to lead. Masculine energy is all those things. It's just that we haven't structured our society so many men are stepping into that role. And I really want people to be very careful of not just assuming because they don't see a lot of men acting a certain way or they don't see a lot of women acting a certain way, assuming that that's just how men and women naturally are. Most of us are not operating right now at our full capacity of our natural core energies. And if we start making assumptions and judgments about people when they're in their wounding, when they're not really operating at their best, we can start going even further astray. And I really do think, like, I would really love for us as a society, and that's part of the reason why I make the videos that I make, is I really want people to really step back in to their natural core energies. I really want people to reconnect to those. Obviously, everybody's going to be ready to do that in their own time, and it's going to look differently for everybody. But I really do think that that's how we heal. And I think it's just so important. And the more people that do that, the more people that start stepping up and doing the work, like, the better off we're all going to be. I worry sometimes because I do see, like, sometimes people just, I feel like they're getting further and further away from understanding this stuff. And I know one thing that I have to accept about myself is I can't change everybody's mind. Some people are gonna believe what they're gonna believe, and you know, all I can do is show up and I can speak my piece and I can say my thing, and I need to sort of, you know, people are gonna hear what they're gonna hear. I have to let people find their truth in their own time, in their own place, when people are ready. That's something I have to work on. I realize. If you don't resonate with my content, I honor that. That's fine. If you do resonate, welcome. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do feel like I am easier on women. I'm softer on women because I really do believe that many women today have been hardened by life. Life is really hard for women today. I don't want to add extra shame, extra judgment, because I really do feel like most women need to soften. I also know that I get a lot of hate from men. Not all men. I have some great male supporters, but I do get a lot of hate from men because I don't coddle men. I have in the past, a lot in my life, but I don't coddle men anymore. I really do feel like part of my reason for presenting this message is not to be a masculine leader. I'm not here to guide any men into their masculinity. I really do believe that it takes masculine men and masculine leadership to do that. However, I also don't believe that being passive and being coddling to men or being overly mothering to men is beneficial for them. If anything, I really do feel like a part of why I'm here and a part of where I am on my journey is to connect to my dark feminine energy, which wants to wake men up. Like, it wants to wake men up who are in their egos. And I think if my content, maybe if you're a man watching, because I do know there are some men who watch my content and get very triggered by what I say. If you're a man who is triggered by what I say, maybe use that as an opportunity to look within. Like, why is what I'm saying triggering you? Why is what I'm saying really making you want to fight? Are you about to leave a comment where you put yourself in victimhood mode? Because if you are, that might be an invitation for you to maybe look into finding a men's group or finding some masculine leadership, because I'm not the one. There's content out there, I see it all the time, where there are women who coddle men. There's women out there who want to attack women and say everything is a woman's fault. I don't consider myself a feminist. I'm certainly not a modern day radical feminist at all. But I really do think that our society right now is pushing women so much into their masculine and not actually teaching men how to embrace their masculine energy. And that's the problem. So for me, I know in my heart, as much as it would be really easy for me, it could be really, really easy for me right now to create content where I coddle men and cater to them, and I could gain myself a huge following just pandering to men who want someone to mother them. I could do it, and I would probably have millions of followers. I've seen it happen. I could name some accounts that do that. I won't, but I could. It's their choice, it's their path. That's not my path. It's not my goal. I really do believe that we need more women to say, I'm not gonna tolerate a weak man. I'm not gonna let a man live in his ego. Like, I think more women need to connect to not only their soft, light feminine, because a lot of women need to connect to that, but also their dark feminine that's like, I'll destroy his ego, I don't care, right? Like, I think that's really important for women to have both. And I really hope I can inspire women to have both, to really soften into your natural feminine, but also know when to put the dark energy hammer down when you need to destroy a man's ego. I think it's really important. And on the flip side, I also see a lot of men who are saying things like, well, women are better leaders, women are doing better in school, women are... I think we also have to be very careful of assuming that because women are succeeding in a certain area or doing well in a certain area, that means that that's what women were naturally meant to do. Women are more adaptable than men, which is one of the reasons why in the way our society is shifted, where women are being pushed into their masculine and men are being pushed into their feminine, women are better at adapting to their situations. Women have to be more adaptable because it's a survival skill for us. Men tend to, in general, be more able to physically protect themselves or to isolate themselves if need be. Whereas women, evolutionary wise, we've had to be more adaptable. So women are adjusting a lot to our situation. You know, just because women are really great at being CEOs of companies or really doing really well in higher education doesn't mean that that's necessarily naturally what we're meant to do. We're seeing a huge rise in anxiety in women, which is most likely because there's so much in their wounded masculine, and that you get anxiety, reproductive health issues, adrenal health issues, all those things can be really tied back to women being outside of their natural feminine energy most of the time. With men, you're seeing so much rampant, I mean, it's being pushed on them younger and younger. They're being enticed into porn, drugs, video games, all kinds of passive behavior. And men are very much in this wounded feminine of being in their victimhood mode. It's leading to depression. The masculine thrives when challenged. The masculine needs a challenge. I know a lot of men want to push back. They're like, oh, so you think men's lives need to be more difficult? Men have never had it easier than they do right now in today's society. Never had it easier, in the sense that with all the modern day conveniences, yes, there are still men out there who are doing physical labor jobs. Absolutely. There probably always will be more men doing physical labor jobs than women, simply because of their biology, of their physical strength. That said, men are not being forced to go to war, at least not in, you know, the United States or in, you know, more Western countries. You know, draft, like if they want to join the military, it's their choice. Men aren't really being expected to financially support a family anymore in most cases, because many men aren't. I mean, they're either only doing it partially or are just not having a family at all, or just not taking care of their families or things like that. Like, men are really not being expected to do nearly as much. They don't have to grow their own food. They don't have to hunt their own food. I mean, in most of our modern day societies, it's never been easier for men to not do anything. And we're seeing such an increased rate of depression, of suicide, because men are not being fully challenged. Now, I would also say on the flip side, it's also one of the most difficult times to be a man in our society, simply because it's easy for them to fall into a lot of these sort of easy, indulgent conveniences, and they don't have strong masculine leaders in order to guide them into their true masculinity. So men have had less guidance nowadays than they ever have in history, but they also have had an easier life. And I love when men want to use the argument that it's like, well, try being a man in the world today. It's like, well, most women are. Like, most women are trying, and most women are, I'm not saying that we're great at it, but most women are adapting to it because we've had to. It's leading to a lot of health problems in both men and women. Women are having to adapt to it. Women are having to be breadwinners in relationships, or the sole earners in relationships. Women are being forced into a lot of, you know, high-powered jobs and careers that are just not natural for them. And again, none of this is to say, hey, look, if you as a woman, you know, your big desire in life is to be a boss babe CEO, or if as a man your goal in life is to be, you know, a stay-at-home dad. If that's your choice, that's your choice. But we are really creating a society where people aren't really choosing these paths. They're being pushed into these paths. And I think we need to be really careful about assuming that, again, because, well, okay, because men like sitting around all day, that's their best self, or because, you know, women are high achieving right now, that's their best self. Like, it's not necessarily true that that's how we're at our best. I'm a big advocate of personal freedom. You want to choose the life you want to choose, that's fine, but I also think that we need to be really careful of just assuming that because someone is is conditioned to believe that a certain life is the right way to be, that's naturally what they should be doing, or that's where they're actually operating at their optimal. Maybe women being high achieving is very successful in business, but is it killing the woman? Like, is a woman who's high achieving and succeeding in business and you know, solving business crises or something like that, but she's destroying her health, and she's actually, like, you know, pumped full of anxiety medications, and she's on mental health medications, and she's in massive therapy, or her adrenals are screwed up, or whatever, like all these kind of things, like, is that worth it? Maybe it is for some people, maybe it's not, but I think it's really important to look at those things. So yeah, I'm sure something I said is probably going to trigger some people, and it's going to set them off. Someone the other day told me I sounded like a 15-year-old Andrew Tate fan, and I was like, I sure ain't 15, and I sure ain't an Andrew Tate fan. So I have a video talking about Andrew Tate, and I'm not going to dive into him in this video, but I'm not. But I also don't disagree with everything he says. I've had conversations with really radical feminists, and I disagree with a lot of what they say, but every once in a while I can find common ground with them as well. You know, I don't necessarily like to align myself with, like, red pill, although I will say, I've heard other people say this, and I fully agree with this, that these sort of, like, man-hating feminists are the same as these woman-hating, like, red pill guys. I don't want to lump everybody who's a feminist or everybody who's red pill into the same category, but it's the same thing. Like, if you're hating on an entire gender, you have some work to do on yourself. And that goes for women who are out there spewing that they hate men, and that goes for men who are out there spewing hatred towards women. Work on yourself. That's my invitation. So I hope some of this cleared up a few of the kind of common misconceptions that I've seen a lot of people kind of commenting on some of my videos, particularly my shorts. Don't fall into stereotypes, media stereotypes, or maybe just your own stereotypes, maybe the limiting beliefs that you've been given. Don't assume that just because, you know, there's a lot of women who are very masculine today, and there's a lot of men that are very feminine today, that that's naturally how we are as people. Most of us are being massively conditioned to disconnect from ourselves, from our bodies. Yeah, I just want us to be more aware and more alert. And, you know, I hope my content inspires you. I hope if you are a feminine woman and you want to connect to your feminine energy, you want to learn more, I have online courses. I have a ton of content, a ton of videos here. And feel free to ask me any questions. If you have any other topic requests you want me to do, anything like that, any master classes or courses you want me to teach, or anything else that you feel like would be helpful, I'd be more than happy to work on something, you know, because I really am passionate about helping women connect to their feminine energy. If you're a man, if you're triggered by something I say or disagree or whatever, I mean, I'm always open to respectful discussions and debates and things like that, absolutely. But if you're a man and something I say has inspired you to look within yourself, or to maybe connect to your masculinity or anything, I have a ton of videos talking more about masculinity in, you know, film roles and things like that here on my channel. I'd be more than happy to recommend some men's groups or male leaders who I think are really great, you know, if you're interested in connecting more to, you know, masculinity or masculine energy or anything like that. More than happy to help, because I really do think that this work is so powerful. It's so important for us to do, and I really want to see us heal. I think collectively, I want to see us really connect to who we truly are, and have everybody really connect to their best selves. And that's really why I make this content. Yeah, if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up. Be sure you subscribe to my channel for more content like this, more masculine, feminine content. Thoughts on this, respectful comments. I'm always open to respectful discussions. If you're disrespectful, you're out. I don't have time for that. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Love your suggestions. If you have any video topics or anything like that you'd like me to talk about, let me know. Leave a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. If you are a woman that wants to connect to her feminine energy, I have online courses. Details are in the description box below, along with links to all my social media accounts. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope you join me next time.